Hey, Nerd Herd, we're back with another show. We're going to break down the Carson Wentz trade. Is he a buy? Is he a sell?
I'm going to see how many names I can screw up in one show.
Ooh, good job. And on top of that, we are going to talk about all the new head coaches and offensive coordinators and where they're at today.
So much great Dynasty information coming your way. Let's get into it.
Ready, set, hut. Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Dotson.
I'm Matt O'Hara.
And I'm Garrett Price.
And we're back today talking some more Dynasty Fantasy Football in February, which is almost over.
It is getting close, man.
Adios. Some recent news going on. Carson Wentz gets traded to the Indianapolis Colts.
Coats. They're cold. They need a coat.
It is February. It's about that
Yep.
time. So he gets traded there. We're going to talk about some of that. We're also going to talk about new NFL coaches and how that affects your fantasy football players. New coaches, new offensive coordinators, new stuff going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
New system, new situations.
Carson Wentz has got the right stuff. We got new stuff going on. A lot going on here in the Dynasty world. Before we get in that, make sure you guys like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you get over there. We have all kinds of fresh Dynasty content coming out there. I got a TJ Hawkinson video coming out and how much I love him soon here. So make sure you like and subscribe there. And if you're new to the YouTube channel or even new to the podcast, make sure you get to our Facebook group as well and join that group. It's where we have almost 11,000 people on there every single day talking Dynasty Fantasy Football. If you're looking for the best Dynasty forum in the world, it's our Facebook group. If you even mention the word redraft, they're going to boot you right out of there. It's all Dynasty all the time. No commercials, no nothing, all Dynasty talk. You get in there, you ask a question, you're getting 85 replies.
Yep. Most of them telling you you're dumb.
And that's what it's good for.
Mostly people telling Gary he's dumb over there. Not me. I chime in there like, oh my gosh, you're so Dynasty intellectual.
That's not what they said.
Dynasty smart. That's a new term.
Yeah, look at me. I'm DS.
I'm not street smart, but I am Dynasty smart.
Book smarts and Dynasty smarts. Yep.
Listen, if I had to choose between being street smart and Dynasty smart, Dynasty smart all day.
All day.
It's a passion of mine.
You're not out on the streets all that often, right?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Thank God. My wife, we'll see.
We're almost at 11,000 members in there, so
Yep, it's getting close,
get
right?
on in there.
How long would it take me to count to 11,000?
Let's find out.
Probably like 11,000 seconds.
If you start now, I'll go get something to eat. Come back.
I'll see you later. So before we get into all that, let's get into the new coaches. Let's talk some Carson Wentz here. So Carson Wentz goes to a situation where all reports are that he opted to go to Indianapolis. Like that was his destination. Nowhere else was going to work. They trade him to Indianapolis to get a 21 third this year, and then a 22 second that could turn into a first if he plays 75% of the snaps, or then plays 70% of the snaps and goes to the playoffs. So it's most likely going to become a first round pick.
Yeah, that's likely how it's, unless there's an injury or they just bench him because he's he's not being very efficient. So that's their kind of one saving grace. If they're not going to make the playoffs and they're getting close to that 70% mark, they'll bench him. I guarantee.
Oh,
that.
for sure, they absolutely will. But it's when we were talking before about the possible destinations for Carson Wentz, this was always like one.
Yep.
And then there was a big gap, and then all the other places he could possibly go. Like this was always the best possible scenario for him. He gets matched up with his old OC, now his head coach. It's a match made in heaven. So there's a lot of pieces to this that we need to dissect, but I'm a big fan of this move.
And
it's great for him.
It also sounds like they were the only ones really bidding, and that's why it wasn't like a crazy price that the Philadelphia Eagles ended up getting. There was rumors that they wanted 3 first rounders for this guy, and that they weren't moving off that for a while. And obviously, you're not going to get that with only a one-person bidding war. And that's It sounded like the Bears kind of had a little bit of they tested the waters, but they never made an offer.
So they never officially made an offer.
And that was the only other team that was really even sniffing around for Carson Wentz.
Well, he's got the big deal, and I think that's the hard part is there's the gamble of, is he going to be back to who he was, which I believe he will.
Yep.
But is he going to be back? And you're going to have to pay a lot of money for a guy that's also been injured quite a bit. So there's definitely risk involved.
Yep.
But the name of the game in the NFL is find your franchise quarterback. There's not many guys that could be a franchise quarterback available. Carson Wentz was one of those guys.
He reunites with Frank Wright, his quarterback's coach, his offensive coordinator back in 2017 when he had his best year, not only in fantasy football, but also in the NFL as well. Man, there was like almost NFL MVP P talk there. In super flex leagues, he was a darling, going top 5. You had to give up multiple first-round picks to get him. And then all the weapons disappear in Philly. He just tanks. His accuracy, his decision-making, his movement in the pocket all looked terrible last year. The rumors coming out that he can't take hard coaching, but he's going with Frank Wright, who knows how to coach him because he already coached him successfully. He's going to have some much better offensive weapons here and offense as a whole, where he did have Jalen Reagor there and then a whole bunch of other hurt guys. His tight ends aren't as good with no Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, but he does have Michael Pittman Jr. He does have Paris Campbell there. And, of course, he has a much better offensive line in Jonathan Taylor and Nahim Hines, which should realistically make everything easier on Wentz. It should really slow things down for him and build this rapport with Pittman, with Campbell. And, of course, there's a lot of news out there that they're still looking to bring in possibly another veteran wide receiver that could help the whole offense.
And they have the cap space to do it.
Tons of cap space.
There's nobody that is off limits for them. Like, if Chris Godwin isn't franchised, if Allen Robinson is still available, like whoever the top guy is, I think they're going to be at least sniffing around at trying to get that guy.
You know what I haven't heard anything about, which is a real sneaky move here, which is not even, well, not sneaky, but nobody's talking about it. What do the Colts need right now? What position on offense do they need?
Tight end.
Okay.
Yep.
Who's available? Who's about to be available at tight end?
Hunter Henry.
No, Zach Ertz. From the Philadelphia Eagles.
Also true.
Who was Carson Wentz's favorite target.
Yep.
And he's right now most likely going to be leaving Philly as well. Indianapolis has some of the top money in free agency.
Sure.
That might be a nice little pairing there. Indianapolis, a veteran, a tight end that can move, that really opens up the middle of the field for them with Jonathan Taylor. Zach Ertz could see a nice I think Zach Ertz is worth a buy in Dynasty Fantasy Football right now. Just on the upside. Well,
on the hope that
wherever he goes, there's upside. But on the upside of Indianapolis alone, like you could talk about, he goes in New England. Everyone's about New England because that's always been. No, Gronk dominated in New England. Doesn't mean it's just a tight end, like number one tight end factory.
Right.
I would love to see Ertz go back to somewhere where Carson Wentz gets a familiar face, and not only a familiar face, but his favorite face to throw a football at. You know?
I'm going to throw this at your face.
I'm going to throw right at your face, Zach.
It's better than not your face. It's way harder to catch that way.
That's true.
I mean, we could look.
Hit him in the chest. No, hit him in the face.
In year one of what Ertz goes to Indianapolis with Wentz, I mean, we're looking at top 6 tight end again behind the offensive line in the middle of that field in a dome. That'd be a fantastic land spot. And right now, Ertz is pretty affordable in Dynasty. So if you need a tight end, say this 2021 draft class is very deep, definitely in Superflex leagues, and you're a competitor, you have a good team, and you're sitting there right around pick 2.8, 2.9. Don't be afraid to maybe try and offer that with Ertz. Like, hey, I'll give you 2.8, I'll give you 2.9, give me Ertz on the upside. One, even if he doesn't sign with Indy, he's going to go somewhere.
Sure.
He's still going to be a viable weapon.
I agree with that. Yep.
But the fact that if he goes to Indy, that could be a difference between you winning a championship.
For sure, yeah, he could absolutely be one of those top 6 guys. I do want to throw this out real quick because I found this interesting, and I don't know that there's a lot of actionable things we can do with it. But what about the whole thing with Michael Pittman Jr. not willing to give Carson Wentz number 11? How? Like, I don't want to read into it too much, but traditionally, if you get a new quarterback in and they want a number, the quarterback gets that number.
Yeah, but still, that's like all of a sudden you're using the bathroom and your turd looks up like, oh, I want to be flushed in spring water. It's like, no, turd, you get the water you deserve. Flush.
So you're out on Carson Wentz? He's a turd?
Last year, was he not a turd, Ferg?
I'm not saying he wasn't.
I am.
I'm just saying.
Wait, what are you trying? Now I'm confused.
Tap
What
water.
are you saying?
I'm just saying Michael Pittman came here as a rookie. He wants to be like the number one receiver.
Sure.
He's obviously very fond of the 11.
Yeah.
You know, Carson Wentz calls him and he's like, hey, what do you think about 11? He's like, I love it. And he's like, oh, that's cool, man. Cause I was thinking about getting a different number anyways. It's cool, man. You know, like a little doofus, like a turd Ferg. And I'm okay with it. Like I don't
have any issue with it, but that's not traditionally like the good feel-good story. Like quarterback and his receiver are doing great together. Like it's
guy that's going to be feeding you the rock.
It's the opposite end of the narrative.
Yeah.
Oh, because you didn't bend the knee?
Yeah.
Sorry, Carson. I was here first. Dibs.
Indeed. I mean, obviously, it's. I mean, that's clear.
My favorite number is 27. I don't know what Michael Pittman's favorite number is. But, number one.
Probably
it's a
11.
good number, so
I'm
it could be a
guessing
number
it's
11.
Guessing at this point,
What if you got a tattoo? What if you already got a tattoo with this number 11 on it? You don't
could.
know. And then all of a sudden they trade for this Turdy Fergie quarterback for the 20.
Okay, Carson Wentz is not bad.
In 2020, he was really bad.
We're basing everything on last year now?
Hey, this is the NFL.
This is our analysis?
This is the NFL. What have you done for me
Is Carson
lately?
Wentz a good quarterback, yes or no?
He's an okay quarterback.
Okay.
Right now. He's okay.
All right.
Right now, okay, if you're starting a franchise, you're going to name more than half of the NFL quarterbacks right now that you take over him right now.
No, I would not.
Yes, you would.
I guarantee I wouldn't.
False.
I would take him over Kirk Cousins. Let's middle of the road, guys.
Oh, we're going to go through all the guys now?
I would take him above Kirk Cousins. I would take him above Jared Goff,
Jimmy Garoppolo,
Teddy Bridgewater.
Teddy Bridgewater will be a starter in 2021.
Exactly.
Who called that, by the way?
That's true. You did.
Guy,
good work.
tentative guy.
Good work. But no, he would definitely be in my top 15. Absolutely.
Okay, that's fine. Listen, can Carson Wentz turn around? 100%.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying he can't turn around, but
You called him a turd.
listen, quarterbacks can be broken. They can be
Piece
broken.
of poop.
If he's on my dynasty team, I'm not overly optimistic. Like, he's not my starting quarterback. So that's fine. You're a starting quarterback in the NFL, but hey, so was Andy Dalton last year. You going to put him out here and try and win a championship? I am trying
He
to
was
win.
not a starting quarterback. Dak
I am
was the
trying
starting
to win
quarterback.
dynasty fantasy football championships. All right. Do I feel confidence Carson Wentz is going to get me there? That trophy? No.
In a super flex, you wouldn't take him as your QB2?
Reluctantly.
Oh, I would do it all day.
I think that's a high upside play in a super
for
flex.
sure.
Him going to Indy's the best case scenario.
Exactly.
It's high,
Yeah.
It's
It's
high
perfect.
upside.
I think you you kind of glanced over, I think, the biggest point here, and it was the Philadelphia offensive line gave up 65 sacks total last year. 50 of them were to Carson Wentz. The next closest team alone, the whole team got 50. So, I mean, they were the worst offensive line by 15 sacks, by a lot.
4 more sacks. He's laying on his back comfortably.
And and with Phillip Rivers as the quarterback in Indianapolis, they only gave up, it was like 30 or something like that. They were second in the whole league in giving up sacks last year. And obviously Phillip Rivers got rid of the ball very quickly and dumps it off to his running backs. He's not going to get hit a whole bunch, but he's not fleet of foot at all. Like, I mean, that guy's running in sand. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and on top of all of that, he doesn't even have to carry the team.
Right.
We saw at the end of the season last year, the running game can do just fine on its own.
Just fine. Listen, I am not here just to poo-poo on Carson Wentz.
Seems like you were.
It's just right now, like, I'm not. I like the move. Yep. It's a great move, but I love the running game there. Let's see how he's utilized there in Indianapolis. Let's see if Paris Campbell will stay healthy. I love Michael Pittman Jr. Let's see if they get Zach Ertz. So let's wait and see.
So now that we've dissected the Carson Wentz is a turd aspect of this whole trade,
let's talk about the nugget.
Let's talk about all the little nuggets around him. Come on, man. Like how does this affect the running game? Like you just said, yeah, you know, like the running the running game. Yeah, the dump off passes from Phillip Rivers last year aren't necessarily going to be there.
Yeah.
Because traditionally, I don't think that Carson Wentz is a guy that used his running backs a whole heck of a lot. Definitely not at the clip that Phillip Rivers did, because we all know
Nobody did.
Exactly, Phillip Rivers used it more than any other quarterback out there.
He did use Miles Sanders and Boston Scott quite a bit. Both those guys were.
I think this past season he did,
involved.
but it was historically it wasn't like you're getting gaudy numbers.
No, it's not. What Brady and Breeze and all the old guys that can't move.
Right, exactly.
It's not what they're doing. But I still think we're going to be looking at around league average.
Okay, so I mean, how do you guys feel about Nahim Hines and Jonathan Taylor now that they're not going to be getting, I think, the volume that they got last year?
That's going to be an offensive. It's still the offensive system they're running. It's not like he dictates that they're going to run. They utilize Nahim Hines a lot on the outs. They moved in the slot some. I mean, he was the third most targeted. I know Phillip Rivers has something to do with that as well.
You say
I know
that,
the receivers were hurt.
Look at San Diego
the year before.
I said
Los Angeles.
Look at Los Angeles the year before, and then compare them to last year when Phillip Rivers wasn't there. There was a big drop off in the amount of passes getting thrown.
Well, Austin Eckler was hurt for a lot of the year too, though.
I know. So there's
and those guys, and Justin Jackson wasn't really a pass catcher running back there.
Yeah.
UCLA running back. Oh my God, Josh Kelly wasn't necessarily a pass catcher running back. So that. When you watch Austin Eckler's going to come back next year, and then he will be utilized there. And we'll talk
they have a whole new offensive system.
We're going to be talking about the Chargers situation here soon. So I think like when you have weapons, if you're going to be a successful NFL coach, you adapt and you utilize the best weapons you have at hand. Right now, in Indianapolis, the best weapons they have on hand that we know for a fact are Nahim Hines and Jonathan Taylor in the offensive line. So they're going to utilize it. I mean, Nahim Hines was extremely effective. We saw even what I did a whole video on YouTube about Nahim Hines, why you should go buy him. You have to go watch this video and why I think he's probably, if you're a contender, the number one buy right now in Dynasty for a running back who's extremely affordable. He was the third most targeted running back. But not only on top of that, what I liked about Nahim Hines last year was he was also pretty efficient on the ground. He ran tough and he ran well. And even in the playoff game, he ran for 73 yards on the ground and looked good doing it. It wasn't like a fluke run, right?
No,
it wasn't like,
runner.
oh, yeah, he was 73 yards, but a 65-yard run. He runs and he takes hits. So I think the best thing for Carson Wentz, what makes me think he can take a step forward, is the game can just get a lot easier on him mentally, where the offensive line and that running game and the safety net of a guy like Nahim Hines. That's why I love the addition of a guy like Zach Ertz, that safety net in the middle there, where if you have Jonathan Taylor and you have Nahim Hines and Zach Ertz on the outside as well, and that middle as your safety net to dump the ball off to, those numbers help. I mean, look, we saw Ryan Tannehill strive using that, right?
Thrive.
Thrive. You know, I'm not Dr. Seuss. And we saw that make him a quarterback one, right? Not the big plays. It's being efficient and getting what's given to you over the middle of the field. So, and we're going to talk about that later too.
Yeah, but Michael Pittman, despite the not great narrative to start, I think he's still going to have a very good season with Carson Wentz, Paris Campbell, and then if T.Y. Hilton does come back, I think that would still be a nice trio with those other two guys taking a bigger chunk into his workload. But it's going to be mostly Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell.
I think you're right because I think Wentz when he was doing well, he was throwing to a guy like Alshon Jeffrey, 6'3", 220 pounds, and I think Michael Pittman Jr. can slide right into that kind of role. It's not that Alshon Jeffrey was ever like this big-time wide receiver one, but he was a nice, solid wide receiver two for all those years with Carson Wentz.
And heaven forbid that they end up adding Allen Robinson, Juju, Chris Godwin.
I mean, that would obviously, he would take a hit, but I still think he's young enough that he'll develop enough that in 2 or 3 years from now he'll still be able to take over that wide receiver one role on that team, regardless of who they sign.
Yep.
So before we move on,
okay,
let's get down to the nitty gritty. Does it cost more than $250? How much is Carson Wentz going to cost you? Like, what are you willing to pay for Carson Wentz right now? You for sure are buying.
Yep.
Let's start here. Are you buying?
I am in Superflex.
Okay, so Superflex only.
Yeah, Superflex.
So let's start here. Let's just one QB.
Who cares, right?
No, you don't.
There's no point in talking about QBs.
Yeah.
One QB.
Superflex league right now. What's the highest you would give up pick wise for Carson Wentz?
So the hardest part about all this, and I'm learning this as I'm playing with different people, I would give way more for any quarterback than most people would.
Well, the harder you play with those people, it's.
Well, that's why I ended up getting on a recent startup. I got like Carson Wentz at pick quarterback 20, but that was before he got traded. I was thinking ahead. Anyway, I would be more than happy to give a mid first and a high second, like both to go get.
So
him.
you're giving up like 1-6 in a Superflex draft.
Mm-hmm.
And 2-1?
Yep.
Oh, no way.
I think that's a little rich for me. I think you're right on when you say you're willing to give up. But I mean,
little too much Dotson for me as well.
I mean, an above average quarterback is worth about 2 firsts.
Yes.
I think he's at least average.
You have to at least throw in a first and then work from there, obviously, no matter what, when you're talking quarterbacks that are going to be startable.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like you said, if you start moving above average and stuff, you're going to be getting into the first and second. I'm not sure I'd want to give that high of a second. You're talking about doing 2-1 or something like Is that what you mentioned?
Yeah, I would do 1-6 and 2-1.
Yeah, and
no
you
problem.
agreed to that? Mm-hmm. I think that is a little bit rich for me. But I'd be okay, if you were in the middle, giving both, first and second, middle of the rounds in both of them easily. And I'd feel
1-6 and 2-6.
Yeah, I'd feel real good about that. Yep.
Yeah, I'd feel a little bit better about. See, that's the thing. If he hits, then you stole him.
Right.
And this is such a good draft class. I guess that's fair. Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'll agree. I wouldn't want to give it.
Chances are you wouldn't have to. Because most people aren't going to make you pay that.
Because 1-6, I mean, in Superflex, you're getting Jamar. You're possibly getting Jamar Chase there.
Devonta Smith.
You're getting Devonta Smith, Travis Etienne.
Kyle Pitts.
If it's Italian premium, you're getting Kyle Pitts there. So it's going to be, and obviously after the draft, we know you can talk all you want about Mac Jones when he goes pretty high. If he goes high, he's going to be a good Superflex pick. So, and that's what you're looking toward. Do you want to, would you rather gamble on Mac Jones in Pittsburgh, Mac Jones in New England, or Carson Wentz, and keep the second.
Yeah. I would rather gamble personally on
Wentz?
Wentz over Mac Jones.
Me too, because I think you've seen he was, I mean, on a points per game basis in, what was it, 2017 or 18, he was the quarterback 2 overall in points per game basis.
And even this season, before the wheels started falling off, he was a top 12 quarterback. Yeah. It wasn't until the second half of the year that everything just fell apart.
He did produce early in the year. We did talk about him like, wow, as much as going on, Carson Wentz is still producing at a high level. So I think 1-6 and 2-6 in a super flex is a little fair. I'm with Matt, like 1-6 and 2-1. That's, you're giving up 2 starters there and another quarterback. I guess it all really depends on how bad I need a quarterback. And even before I pull that trigger, I would be kind of like, see what other quarterback would be out there for him. But upside, like, so if you had to guess, Matt, does he rebound for 2021? Is Carson Wentz a top 15 quarterback in fantasy football in 2021?
I think he is right around there, 14 or 15. I think he rebounds. I think the weapons are better. Like you said, the offensive line is vastly better. And now that he's getting coached up by a guy that I think knows how to teach him and knows how to relate to him, I think he's going to respond to that.
Knowing the system.
Yep. Obviously.
Yeah, I would say somewhere between 12 and 15.
Yeah, I'm comfortable right around that 15 range as well. Who has more fantasy points, Trevor Lawrence or Carson Wentz in 2021?
Ooh.
For 2021, I'll give the slight nod to Wentz. Long term, obviously not, but for the first year.
I think Trevor can beat him.
I'm going. Yep,
it's possible. It's definitely possible.
He's giving a slight nod. I'm giving a big nod. I'm like Trevor
Lawrence. I think Trevor can beat him. Yeah.
What about Baker Mayfield or Carson Wentz?
Easily Baker Mayfield.
Well, why don't we talk about the other end of this?
Baker Mayfield was a top 9 quarterback after that bad weather game the second half of the year, and he gets OBJ back, and he's going to be the second year of the system. Baker Mayfield might be quarterback 1 overall. I don't know.
But let's talk about the other side of this. Hurts?
Jalen Hurts.
Or Wentz?
Oh, Wentz.
All right, well, let's talk about Jalen Hurts because I agree. I would rather have Wentz personally.
So would I as well.
But I don't think that's the general consensus. I think most people either have them very equal or maybe even a slight nod to Hurts.
Well, yeah, because Hurts has got the rushing ability. But here's the thing. Here's the thing I'm worried about Hurts right now, today, right? Mm-hmm. Today I'm worried about, we don't know if the Eagles are going to take a quarterback at 6. We don't know.
It's possible.
It's very possible. I mean, Jalen Hurts is a second-round pick, right? They don't owe him they don't owe him anything. And yeah, he looked good last year, but I'm somewhat concerned about that. And the weapons in Philadelphia right now too. They're going to get rid of probably Zach Ertz. They have Jalen Reagor, who we like as well. Do they utilize that for like you mentioned? The offensive line's not very good. The team's not good as a whole. Right. So you're mostly looking at Jalen Hurts to help your fantasy team with his rushing ability. Yep. And that's something that you can stop at the next level. Jalen Hurts is going to go into 2021 with a lot more film on him now than he did in 2020. And we saw that the NFL defenses can learn how to shut that down pretty efficiently. So for me, I think Jalen Hurts, like, I'm not buying him.
I'm not either.
And I'm not selling him. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not, if I own him, I'd rather like
see if he's going to hit. See if he's going to hit. I think Philadelphia is going to see what they have in him this year. I mean, they're the second to the bottom of cap space right now. They're at close to 38 million under. Like, they're negative 38 million right now. So I don't think they can afford to, like, I think they're going to start tearing this team down a little bit more before they can start building it back up. And I don't see personally why you would start that with a young quarterback and not be able to surround him with some pieces. So I think this is a year where they find out if they got some pieces.
I think so too.
And they find out if they have something in Jalen Hurts.
And if not, they'll have another top 6 pick.
Exactly. And if they don't, next year when this all rolls around and their cap space clears up a little bit, and maybe they can bring in a veteran wide receiver, because a lot of these people that are out there right now might only be signing real short-term deals because of the situation with the cap. Sure. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these people end up landing back out in free agency next year, and they can kind of dibble dabble and when they have a little bit more room and space and kind of build around a young quarterback a year from now.
I think it all boils down to who's there at 6. Like, I bet they'll have a couple of quarterbacks on their board. Like, okay, if he's here at 6, we're taking him. Yeah. And then if not, they're going to go elsewhere.
They could be a prime trade back though, a candidate as well. Come draft,
pick up additional assets.
Exactly, pick up some additional assets
that are cheaper contracts.
Exactly.
What would you sell Wentz for Hurts for right now? So say somebody's a Philly fan or just a Hurts fan in general. Sure. They love him. Like, he's going to rush. He's the next. He's Kyler Murray, the poor man's Kyler Murray. They come up to you, Superflex League. 1.4. Are you taking 1.4 for Wentz or Hurts?
1.4.
In a super flex league.
I think I would.
I would 100%.
I definitely would. Because
I'd go top. I would take a top. I know I said, okay, I wouldn't sell it, but if you offer me, for a player I took in the second round last year, if you offer me anywhere from probably around pick 1-8 up, and I had a chance to get a guy like Kyle Pitts, Devontae Smith, Jamar, if I had a guy to get like that, I would probably gamble there.
If I took Jalen Hurts last year, which I don't have any shares of him or anything like that.
One.
Do you? It would have been because this exact scenario. I wanted to cash out after 1 year. Like it would have been a lottery ticket pick for me. So if I was able to turn a second round pick into a high first round pick, I would do it hands down easily. Just flip of the coin. Go.
I want to make sure that I'm getting another quarterback.
That
I want. And so I think that's why I would need right around 4, because I think that it's possible that Justin Fields could be there, Zach Wilson will be there, Trey Lance will be there. One of those three
guys will be there.
Will be there for me. And at this point, I think I feel comfortable enough with all of them being decently long-term starters. That
Trey Lance has some nice tools. I was digging into his 2019 tape the other day. He looks really
uber
impressive. Yeah, very impressive. Yeah.
Big arm.
Yeah.
He could be like.
We'll save that for another show. But
we'll talk about it.
That was my quick analysis.
So real quick, I ran a poll last week or 5 days ago on if people are selling or holding Hurts. 71% said sell.
Interesting.
I mean, I think that's the play, because I don't personally believe that he's got an NFL arm. I know that I've said this in the past about guys like Lamar Miller, and they tweaked.
I don't think Lamar Miller does, to be fair. I think you were right on that. You were right on the ball.
Lamar Jackson, this guy, Lamar Jackson. But
that running back's arm is terrible.
I still don't think Lamar Jackson has a great arm. You know what I mean? They're working around, I think, his deficiencies, and they might.
His athleticism is very different.
That was going to be my endpoint. Yeah, I was going to say they cover up a lot of his deficiencies with his athleticism, and I don't think Jalen Hurts has the exact same kind of athleticism that Jalen. I mean, dang it.
Yeah, they're night and day different. I mean,
Lamar Jackson,
Lamar Miller,
DK Metcalf's a man, and I'm a man.
But you guys are completely different.
But we might as well be two completely different species. Honestly, the guy is night and day. So, but I mean, that's Dynasty Fantasy Football for you as a whole, right? Like finding the right point to buy and sell players. That's it's easy to say, oh, I want to build a dynasty, but the key to building a successful dynasty is treating it like the stock market all the time, finding right opportunities to buy and sell players. So this is one of those opportunities, right? Do you buy or do you sell? Because if you buy Jalen Hurts and it hits, then you did well. If you didn't, then you just set your team back a little bit because you just trade away 1.4, 1.5, 1.6 on a player. When you look back on 2 years from now going, what was I doing? And because a lot of times, more times than not, when you sell, that ends up being a better decision. On spike players like that. Those flashes in the plan.
I was going to say it's not always, but on players like this that are kind of flash in the pan. I mean, Miles Sanders last year was this, like big flash in the pan, another Philadelphia player. And he completely tanked the year. You know what I mean? You can't get anywhere close to what you could have gotten at the beginning of last season.
It's funny. I was super out last year. I'm super in on Miles Sanders this year. The prices dropped drastically.
Well, that's what, absolutely.
Super in.
Well, when we talked about Miles Sanders, we said, I loved Miles Sanders tape. When I watched every single game of him in college, and I absolutely loved him coming out. He was my number 2 running back. But even as somebody that loved Miles Sanders coming out, when that spike hit, I was like, you have to sell Miles Sanders. Even if he becomes awesome, this is fair value if he's awesome, and he's never done anything.
Right.
So that's finding the right opportunities to buy, the right opportunities to sell. And like Garrett said, now that script is completely flipped, and now Miles Sanders is affordable. Joe Mixon, you just did a video on Joe Mixon. Now's the time to buy Joe Mixon because the investment isn't as much, so you don't lose as much. It's a lot of times when you're putting yourself out there and you're giving up 3 firsts in a player. It's like when you give up a lot, that hurts your dynasty team long term for one asset.
You gotta hit if you're doing that. You have no wiggle room.
So let's move on to some of our coaches. We talked about Carson Wentz for quite a bit.
Before we do that, you were mentioning how we have to look at this like the stock market.
Yes.
And that's exactly what our guys at PredictionStrike.com do. And I thought you were segueing into that. That was going to be so perfect.
So did I. Did you see the glint in my eyes?
I think we were like, man, Rich, you're on the ball.
Yeah, dude, I was like, this is one smooth transition.
Look at that.
Of course I was.
But that's exactly what they do at PredictionStrike.com. Had you bought Carson Wentz before the Indy deal, I'm sure his stock has got to be higher right now. Jared, look it up for us. I'm sure Carson Wentz's value on there has to be higher. I don't know. You can tell us later. But those are the types of deals that you got to be looking ahead. What guys are going to gain value? What guys are going to lose value? We've seen all kinds of stuff on the stock market and stuff lately, but this is a chance where we get to do what we know best. You might not know about Bitcoin. You might not know about all these companies to invest in, but you know what? You probably know about players because you listen to Dynasty Nerds. That's what we talk about, and we're going to be talking about all of these rookies to invest in. You might want to invest in a guy like Trevor Lawrence. I don't know. He might be good.
He might be.
We'll
I've heard a good thing or two about him.
And you might want to invest in his receiver, DJ Chark, as well.
Invest. We're going to talk about him very shortly.
Yes. So simply visit PredictionStrike.com. Download their app. They have an app on the App Store. Anytime that you can use an app for me, that automatically elevates you. I do most of the things on my phone. Sign up today with the promo code DYNASTY to receive $10 free for your first deposit of $20 or more. That's code DYNASTY to receive $10 free with your first deposit of $20 or more.
Yeah, and then spend that $10 on Curtis Samuel because he's awesome.
What do you guys know about Dogecoin?
It's Doge, dude. Right?
I know that, dude.
I know it's not available on
I
Coinbase.
thought it was Dodge.
Hey. I did buy Carson Wentz.
Did you?
Yeah, and my portfolio with Carson Wentz is up 15%.
Hey,
Nice.
look at
Yeah.
that.
You want to be 15% richer like our friend Jared over here? Get on PredictionStrike.com right now. Yeah. Why invest in stuff you don't know about?
Right.
This is what we know about. Prediction Strike. So let's talk NFL coaches. Let's start with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They hired Urban Meyer. Okay. So Urban Meyer comes in, brings in Darrell Bevel as his offensive coordinator, who was previously with the Lions. He'll call plays as OC, but according to Urban Meyer, he said he's going to adapt to his vision. Brian Schottenheimer is the passing game coordinator. Now, Urban Meyer, we know about Urban Meyer is he always utilized a mobile quarterback, and he ran the ball a lot as well. Over the last 2 years at Ohio State, in 2018, he ran the ball 49% of the time and passed 51% of the time. And
that's a nice balance.
That's the most he's ever passed in his entire college career. It's an outlier season for him because even in 2017, he passed the ball 45% and ran the ball 55%. Which is his norm if you look at his whole career as a coach. And he's been quoted as saying, you need to run the ball to have a successful offense. And what's nice about Herb, though, is Herb didn't just utilize the running back, which it has me somewhat optimistic about Laviska Shenault. If you remember his days at Florida, he utilized Percy Harvin a lot. And in Ohio State, he utilized Curtis Samuel as somebody who would run the ball as well. And I know Darrell Bevel had a pass-heavy offense with Matt Stafford. They threw the ball a ton there. But when he was with Minnesota and Seattle, when he had Adrian Peterson and Marshawn Lynch, he also ran the ball a ton. And when they're most likely going to draft a guy like Trevor Lawrence can run. Like, he's a mobile quarterback.
Very good athlete.
40 games, he had 231 carries for 943 yards and 18 touchdowns, which is good for 4.1 yards per carry. So this is a good situation for Trevor Lawrence. I tweeted out once they hired Urban Meyer, this is great news for James Robinson. And people were like, oh, why? I was like, well, turns out James Robinson last year was a top 5 running back in PPR leagues, and the team ran the ball only 17.6 times a game last year. And that should increase significantly, which should help him out. Also, Urban Meyer, his offense loves to utilize like his star players and put them in position to succeed. And right now, I mentioned Laviska Shenault. I like his upside here with Urban Meyer and Darrell Bevel calling the plays. But we mentioned that we talk about DJ Chark. DJ Chark right now should benefit as the top primary passing weapon in this game. And last year, he's somebody who saw 92 targets. 31 of those targets were actually deep balls. But he only caught 11 of those. He only caught 10 of those, but 11 of them were only catchable. So he caught 10 of the 11 that were catchable. And again, Trevor Lawrence is somebody who comes in, has a really nice deep ball and an accurate deep ball. So I really like where this is going with DJ Chark, James Robinson, and Trevor Lawrence. That's a really good core. And then you throw in a guy like Laviska Shenault, their second-round pick last year, who could be a nice versatile weapon that I think Urban and Bevel can get the most out of compared to like what Marone and them last year here is. I look for this offense to take a big step forward. I look for them to add another piece, I
think a tight end. As well. I could see them adding a tight end somewhere.
Which again, Herb likes the tight end when he gets them. I mean, he had guys like Aaron Hernandez back in the day, Trey Burton back in the day when he utilized them. Ohio State never really had that big tight end, but when Herb had those, they used them. So To me, this
both,
is
both those guys are smaller move type of guys, so maybe they'll be looking for somebody like that.
like an Irv Smith Jr. kind of guy.
Reverend
like that.
Jordan, baby.
There you go.
Oh, that'd be a great fit.
I would love Reverend Jordan.
That'd be a great second-round pick for the Jackson. That'd be a big skyrocket for him there.
For sure.
But this is an offense where I could see the Jaguars, anytime you had a guy like Trevor Lawrence, start to take not little steps forward, but big steps forward. And when you take a big step forward, the quality quarterback, your fantasy players are going to benefit. So I think the way Urban Meyer coaches and call his plays, this is really good news right now as it stands for DJ Shark and James Robinson. I think James Robinson benefits the most, where you can ride him to a championship next year, and then I would look to like that's the time to get. I think after the end of the 2021 season would be you're going to get really good return on a guy like James Robinson who can get on the outside very well, this speed, and also has very good vision.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do envision him as a 2 to 3 year window type of guy. But you mentioned it, man. Like that's Herb's game. He's going to try to run and run and run, get everyone creeping up, and then dump passes long, over the top once everyone starts committing kind of to the run. So I love all the fits that you were talking about. The one thing you didn't really mention is the running game. Like you said, you kind of alluded to it with the Percy Harvin stuff, but Laviska Shenault's going to be getting the balls on reverses and all sorts of stuff like that, which is just another way he likes to get everyone sucked up closer to the line of scrimmage so he can hit big plays, over the top. So I love the fit there. Like you said, the three guys that you mentioned, I think, are all going to benefit from this offense, and anyone else that they bring in. You could always, could he reunite with a Curtis Samuel type of guy?
Sure.
We'll get into that a little bit more, I think, in our free agent show next during the Nerd Herd show. But
that'd be nice.
I definitely see, some adding a piece wouldn't be bad for them, because I think Herb always likes to have a lot of weapons.
Well, and it's perfect that Urban Meyer is coming from the college game, because even though they've started to bleed into each other a lot more, there are some differences, and you're getting a quarterback that is just recently out of college. So I expect them to run a lot of college concepts.
RPO type of stuff.
Some RPO.
Yep, absolutely.
Herb even described his offense, because he runs almost exclusively shotgun, but he described his offense as a power running game through the spread. Like that, those were his own words, and that's basically what he's going to do. So I think that we're going to see a lot of running of the football. But we know that Trevor Lawrence is also this once in a generation type talent. So I think that Herb and Bevel are also smart enough to adapt to the strengths of Trevor Lawrence. So even though I think that they will rely on the run game a lot, I wouldn't be shocked at all to see them really open it up at times and let Trevor Lawrence do what he does best.
And another thing, piggybacking off what you said about him, coming in from the college game and Trevor Lawrence obviously being fresh from the college game, I think they'll be able to grow into the NFL together. So I think it'll start off in year one and be a lot of college concepts, and kind of as they both kind of figure out what works and what doesn't, I think you'll see it kind of morphing into a different offense, maybe a little less RPO, so he's not taking so many big hits from these NFL style guys as opposed to the college guys he's used to getting hit by. So I could see an evolution, I think, in the next 2 to 3 years of this offense as well.
Awesome.
All right, let's move on to the next coach here. Matt, you want to tell us a little bit about the New York Jets and what they did in the head coaching department?
I would love to, except I just lost my spot there.
Oh, he lost his spot. So I
got it. Robert Saleh. Oh, go ahead.
Robert Saleh is the head coach. Mike LaFleur, obviously, is the OC, who is brother of Matt LaFleur, the Green Bay Packers head coach. He's going to most likely bring in the same style, West Coast, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan-esque style offense into the Jets system. And to me, that points to, a number one wide receiver getting fed the ball. They're going to be doing some zone running scheme stuff, and there's going to be getting involved with the tight end over the middle. So, obviously, they don't have a viable running back at this point, so that's something that's probably going to come through the draft or via free agents. I think we all see some guys that I think will fit nicely into that spot, and the Jets have a ton of cap space as well to spend.
Great spot. That's why I changed when we do our free agency show. There's a couple players we already talked about in free agency that we're going to bring back up again because I've already changed my mind. And there's a running back I would absolutely love for the Jets here.
Right. So I mean, good things for, I think, guys like Chris Herndon, who kind of flashed, but kind of fell off during the Adam Gase era there. I think you could see a nice little revival from a guy like Chris Herndon and Chris Mims. I told you,
Former Cleveland Cavalier.
My brain is. I told you, my brain
It's
is
like
on
early
overload.
2000s white center for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Wow, that's a throwback.
But Mims, anyway, on the outside, it could
Denzel
also,
Mims, that is.
Denzel
Out of
Mims
Baylor.
could see a nice little bump.
Denzel Washington?
Oh my God! I told you, my brain. I told you guys. I didn't tell everyone.
Yeah, I like Chris Herndon here. I loved Denzel Mims in the system. Like you said, him coming over, bringing LaFleur. And like you said, LaFleur's coming from Kyle Shanahan, 49ers. But he's been with Kyle Shanahan for the last 6 years. And you mentioned that his offense. So what is he going to do if he copies his offense a little bit and utilizes it to make it his own? Kyle Shanahan runs he's one of the best offensive coordinators in the league. He runs a very fast and innovative offense that runs a ton of outside zone run plays, but also a lot of play action, and he has a ton of motion to confuse those defenses. I saw on ESPN that the 49ers were top in the league last year when it came to using motion, and they're going to use that, which is going to be completely different what the Jets did last year, because last year, the Jets' offense was terrible. They used the motion the least in the league. They had the least amount of points, the least amount of yards. He's going to go to a situation where the Jets now have a nice butt-in offensive line here. They get Mekhi Becton, who looked great last year, who was actually quoted at the Combine saying, I love the run the outside and inside zone. It's one of my favorite things to do, get out there and kind of command those defensive players. So with those two good tackles in Becton, they got George Fant as well. This is an offense that, if he brings the system in, who's the running back going to be? So to me, this tells me, it doesn't tell me, I think it's more likely they're going to grab a running back that's going to be a quality running back either through the draft, maybe a guy like Javonte Williams, Travis Etienne, Najee Harris. Again, there's a running back we're going to talk about the next show that I think would be a great fit as well here because they have the money to spend on here to help their.
It's Frank Gore, isn't it?
It's Frank Gore.
You got me.
Yeah,
I don't want to ruin the show.
Spoiler.
So
100-year-old Frank Gore.
I think this offense could do a lot for Sam Darnold if they elect to keep him. If they went elsewhere and they want to get a little bit more of a mobile guy, a guy like maybe Trey Lance or a guy like Zach Wilson or Justin Fields, I would stick with Sam Darnold personally because I already have investment there, and I would go elsewhere with this pick. But I really like what this does for the running back, and I love what it does for Denzel Mims.
Are you afraid that Adam Gase broke him, though? You said quarterbacks could be broken.
Sure, you did say that.
No, I mean, they can be, but I think the thing with Darnold, though, is he's so young. You got to remember, he came in the league at 20 years old, so there's so much room there. And we saw what Ryan Tannehill did that, and what he did when he moved on. And I think that's what they need to start off with Sam Darnold, is keep everything short, simple, and help let Denzel Mims just smoke on the outside.
LaFleur is actually a former college quarterback. So if there's any position that I feel like he would be able to really invest in, it would be that quarterback position. And I remember hearing about, just learning, I was trying to learn a lot about Kyle Shanahan and what he was doing. And it talked about how Mike McDaniel and LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan, after the games were over, they would just shut themselves in a room. And they wouldn't talk to anybody for ever. And they would go over all of these finer points and details of what they need to be doing to build this offense. And so he spent a lot of time with Kyle Shanahan just developing all of these little nuances and all of these things. And we know Robert Saleh was also there with the 49ers.
Right.
We haven't touched on him as much because he's not going to do as much with the play calling and things like that. But this is another guy, Saleh, that one of his favorite things to do is sit down and play chess. So we're talking about high-level intellectuals here that I think they're going to build some really, really unique things here.
I play chess every day. Am I high intellectual?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. So these are the types of guys, though, that I think they are going to be running a very high-level offense. I think they're going to be looking for very smart, intelligent players that can do these concepts and a lot of the motions and a lot of the different nuanced things that they're going to want to do. So I'm excited to see what happens.
It's fantasy football gold. This Kyle Shanahan, Gary Kubiak offense that they run at Mike Shanahan. Gary Kubiak. They kind of were the godfathers of this offense here. Kind of just the West Coast offense goes back to, oh my God, I forgot his name all of a sudden from San Francisco. Bill Walsh.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
The young guy knew that one.
And it's
I could picture his face and I couldn't names today. Just not happening.
It's something that could be there's not a lot of things you love about the Jets right now, but if things go well with Mike LaFleur, what he could do here, we'll see him as a head coach soon. And it'll be reflected on the offensive skill players he has. I think it really is going to revolve, though, about who is behind the backfield. And whoever is that Jets running back, I think this will be a very valuable fantasy asset for the 2021 season. I'm excited to find out who that is, whether it be free agency or through the draft. If they drafted a guy like Javonte Williams, that'd be a huge boost for me in value.
He's a nice little one cut and go type of guy. I think he would fit nice in his own read scheme.
And I want to see a guy who could be a 3-down player in this offense. I want to see a guy who can catch the football well on that outside zone to be that dump off guy as well. And again, when you have a guy like Becton, that guy's like a tsunami in front of you, just blocking people.
He really got it. I mean,
that's
guy
a great description.
He is ginormous, and he's got the longest arms you've ever seen. Also, like, good luck getting away from that guy.
So let's move on. Let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons. They bring in a guy like Arthur Smith. Garrett, you want to tell us a little bit about Arthur Smith in the Atlanta Falcons?
Yeah, Arthur Smith. He has been the offensive coordinator over there in Tennessee for a while now. And what really excites me about him is obviously the running game. Mm-hmm. Like he has built that offense around Derrick Henry. Right now, there is not a running back in place though in Atlanta.
Right.
We have Todd Gurley that was there last year.
This is very similar to the other situation here with the Jets, where it's like this is a guy that wants to run the ball.
He wants to run the football.
I got another great free agency fit for this here too. When we go to the free agency.
Okay. All right.
Great fit. Great, fantastic fit. Fantastic fit.
Devontae Freeman.
Bring him back. We've got Frank Gore and Devonta Freeman.
I was going to say Frank Gore, but I love that choice too. Hey, a lot of F's going on here. A little Freeman, a little Frank. Hey, we're the beans. We're the beans. Go on.
So that's the big thing. He's going to run a very power-heavy offense. But right now, there's not really as much of the personnel in place to do some of the things that I would assume he would want to do. We do still have Matt Ryan here.
Sure.
But this is an offense that could shift on a dime any minute. They have the number 4 overall pick. They could easily end up taking a quarterback. A lot of new regimes like to get their guy. It's going to be really interesting to see if they think they still have the pieces in place to win this year, or if he's going to be the coach that starts the new rebuild. I'm really curious to see how all of that ends up playing out. But I do really like him. And it's also, we've emphasized, and everyone does, and I just did as well, all the things he does in the running game. But let's give him some credit for what he did with Ryan Tannehill, turning his career around a little bit too. He's done some nice things with their receivers. So I'm a big fan of Arthur Smith here. I just don't know if all the pieces are going to be in place. We'll see.
Oh, I've got some stuff here for you.
Oh, stuff
Go
me.
ahead.
First of all, I've got a player that you should be excited about here in Atlanta that anybody's thinking about. I think it's easy. Everybody's like, Arthur Smith's going here, the running game. Who's going to be the running back in Atlanta? That's easy to say when your running back is Derrick Henry. And Arthur Smith himself came out and said, it's easy to say that when I have Derrick Henry. He actually quoted saying, you could also be very successful doing exactly what Cleveland does. That's what he said, because Cleveland has 2 quality running backs. He's like, we have Derrick Henry, so we just fed Derrick Henry. He's like, if I have multiple good running backs, or I just have multiple running backs, then I will use all those running backs. Mm-hmm. They had Derrick Henry. So there's a very good chance that they don't get a big guy kind of like that.
Sure.
That running back will be overinflated immediately because people are going to just automatically think Derrick Henry kind of carries, when in reality, that running back's only going to be getting about 15 carries per game. What I want to tell you, the player you should be overly excited about here in Atlanta is, again, you mentioned Ryan Tannehill. I think the first thing Arthur Smith has to do is get Matt Ryan right and get him back to the talented level. And I think he could probably do that by doing a lot of things there that they did in Tennessee, by keeping things short and sweet. And how do they do that? They utilize the middle of the field. Arthur Smith was a former tight end coach, right? And you'd be surprised, but he utilized the tight end a ton in Tennessee.
Walker,
between multiple guys. Jonnu Smith last year, 65 targets. Anthony Ferkser, 53 targets. Jeff Swaim, 12 targets. Makil Pruitt, 8 targets. A total of 138 targets out of 485. That's 28% of the targets went to the tight end. We're talking about A.J. Brown. We're talking about the breakout year of Corey Davis. 28% of the targets went to the tight end. It just so happened to be a lot of tight ends. So you really couldn't see a breakout guy
right,
there.
They're going to run a lot of 2 tight end sets and stuff like that. Yep.
This helped keep the offense efficient with easy and short-range targets for Ryan Tannehill, which made him a top 8 fantasy football quarterback. Last year, Atlanta, their tight ends, caught 16% of their passes. Hurst led the way with 56 receptions. So you're talking about a player that could take a big step forward into some fantasy relevance. Now, I talked Hayden Hurst stuff last year a ton, so I'm not going to jump back in there, but I'm going to stick my toe back in that water. If you're looking for some high upside player, Look for a guy who's a former tight end coach that his offense has proven over history to target the tight end heavily. And when you got guys like Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley on the outside, it's going to be really easy to open up that middle of the field.
That middle. Yep.
I think a lot of focus on Atlanta is going to go to the running game just because Arthur Smith came from Tennessee. But we all know Derrick Henry is a different mold of a running back than you can bring in anywhere. You know what I mean? Yeah, they get Najee Harris. Great, but there's not many running backs that you could bring in that would get me that excited. I think that's almost going to be a trap for a lot of fantasy players that I'm not selling. I'd be more closer to selling a running back if I didn't love it, if it's not just a couple of guys and try and get a boost. And I said Hayden Hurst right now is a very low value dynasty tight end. There's a lot of targets that could potentially be going his way. And he could see, even with some other help out there, I know they have like Jaden Graham, but say he sees 20% of the targets. When you see 20% of the targets as a tight end, you're starting to get that tight end one category. And how efficient can he be? And we saw, again, I think he utilized the middle just the same as he did here, having Calvin Ridley and Julio, because I love A.J. Brown and Corey Davis much as the next guy, but I'll take Julio and Calvin Ridley over A.J. Brown and Corey Davis any day of the week. So I think Hayden Hurst is a nice sneaky target here.
And that was one of the things that I was talking about. I don't know that they have the personnel. Like the Football Outsiders rated Atlanta's offensive line as the 26th worst last year. So
they've aged, and it hasn't been, it's kind of been deteriorating, I feel like, for the past about 3 years.
And that's what I'm targeting with that high, the 6 overall pick. I'm riding Matt Ryan another year, and you're paying Julio the money. You're paying Matt Ryan the money. So go offensive line here and help the team out because it's a good offensive line draft.
Yeah, this is one of the better, especially at tackle. This is one of the better classes.
And I agree. And the one thing I feel like you kind of didn't touch on there that I did at least want to mention, because I said it on the last Nerd Herd episode, was the fact that they're going to utilize the play action pass. That's what they're really trying to set up. They're trying to run. They're trying to pound you. They're trying to pound you. They're trying to pound you to set up easy passes over the middle, but also play action passes as well. So I feel like that's going to be a big repertoire for them going into this next season. A lot of easy passes for Matt Ryan if they decide to stick with him, which I feel like they're going to as well. I agree with you, Rich.
Moving on, LA Chargers bring in Brandon Staley, the former defensive coordinator for the Rams, but he was also a former college quarterback. The big thing here, though, is they bring in offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi from the New Orleans Saints. Joe Lombardi is going to come in here. He's going to coach up Justin Herbert, who is going to go on to his 5th offensive coordinator in 5 years, coming off a record-setting year where he threw for 4,300 passing yards and 36 touchdowns. But Lombardi is known throughout the NFL as a good quarterbacks coach. And working with Drew Brees is going to be great for a guy like Justin Herbert. A lot of people are worried about, what's going to happen now? Herbert just lost Anthony Lynn. I think he's actually upgrading here from a quarterback standpoint with a guy like Joe Lombardi.
Anthony Lynn was a running backs guy.
He was a running backs guy.
He was.
But at the same time, we don't see anything. We don't see it hurt because he's already talking up. Like he saw that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams didn't get 1,000 yards. He's like, we need to utilize those weapons. He's like, we have Austin Eckler. Again, we're talking about a guy who's coming from a situation where he knows how to utilize that pass catcher running back as well, coming from a guy like Alvin Kamara. So for me, this offensive coordinator and Joe Lombardi, it's like keep guiding that ship. You already have, you have a very nice vessel. Just keep going with going.
And it's more than just Alvin Kamara. It's Alvin Kamara. It goes back to like Reggie Bush.
I gotta notice that we have to stop calling him Kamara. It's Kamara.
Kamara?
Yeah. It is Kamara.
It is, yeah.
Somebody yelled at us like Kamara. If you can't say his name. We've been saying Kamara.
My name's O'Hara. I should be able to say Kamara. Like I should know that. Why don't I know that? It's Kamara. I got it now. It's in my brain.
Kamara. Go on.
Kamara. I lost my train of thought, man. You totally cut me off like you always do.
He's even said, like, people call me both. I don't really care.
Oh.
So he's even come out and said he doesn't care.
I like Kamara better.
Oh, it goes back to Darren Sproles. It goes back to,
Darren Sproles was there,
yeah. So Joe Lombardi's.
Reggie Bush.
Yeah, Reggie Bush. It goes way back to just, it goes past Kamara. Now I'm not going to know what's what.
Yeah. You're going to get it wrong no matter
how I say it, I'm going to have it wrong. So Joe Lombardi has a very, very long history, I think, of throwing to the running backs. So I think you can definitely expect to see, names.
Austin Eckler?
Austin Eckler. Thank you very much.
Austin Eckler?
Austin Eckler get a lot of catches in this upcoming season.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with the tight ends here on this team too, because Hunter Henry is a free agent. They could franchise tag him. They could work out a deal, but at this point,
Parham?
it's definitely looking like he's probably leaving. So do they do that, or are they one of these teams that look to a draft and take one of these top 3 guys? A guy like Kyle Pitts would be a lot of fun on this team.
It would. Yep.
It would be a lot of fun on this. It would be a great draft pick. Earlier, you mentioned a guy like Brevin
Jordan.
Yeah, going down later. Or even a guy like Pat Freiermuth, who's kind of in that Hunter Henry role.
Yep.
As
it would be a much more similar style fit.
Yeah, so right now, everything's still hunky-dory in LA. Like, you still love everything that's there. Nothing's really changing from that aspect, so we can move on.
And I love, even though he's a defensive coach, I love that he comes from an offensive frame of mind. Like, I love that that's all going to mesh well together.
It should.
Yep.
Dan Campbell goes to the Lions. We kind of already hit on this a little bit. We did a show. Just to recap, if you didn't see that show, Dan Campbell, the former Miami intern head coach, tight ends, and assistant head coach in New Orleans. The big thing here is like he comes from New Orleans, and they also bring Anthony Lynn, former head coach of the Chargers, as his offensive coordinator.
Swift.
This all bodes well for Dynasty skyrocket in value for DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson. This offense will run through those 2 players, and they both should see significant jumps in their production and fantasy value overall. We don't know who the number 1 receiver is going to be there. Do they bring Kenny Galladay back? Do they franchise him? They're going to have a number 1 receiver to offset Quintez Cephas, but even so,
they don't have a lot of money though.
They don't.
They're actually negative in the cap, just a little bit, like $1.5 million or so, but they're negative in the cap right now.
That being said, this offense will run through DeAndre Swift and it's going to run through TJ Hawkinson. If you could buy DeAndre Swift right now, God bless you. If you could buy TJ Hawkinson, you need to, and we're going to do a YouTube video on that too. So make sure you subscribe to that YouTube channel, because again, these are topics we want to hit up on YouTube. Again, 5-minute videos about players that we think you should target and sell, and hit them up in depth real quick. It's a huge reason why you should subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yep.
For little videos like that, just to make yourself a better Dynasty player. Again, we talk about buy, sell at the right time. We're going to try and help you guide you that with our opinion, and hopefully we're right more than we're wrong. But we'll be wrong sometimes. And
it happens, man.
Sorry, not sorry. Got to put yourself out there, right?
No one bats 1,000.
So again, that's Lions in a nutshell. Great offensive coordinator. Seems like we'll find out what they have in a head coach. Moving on.
Yep.
Eagles bring in Nick Sirianni, former offensive coordinator in Indy. Spent the last 3 years under Frank Wright with the Colts, where they traded Carson Wentz to. So
yeah, it's very meshed thing going on right there.
And he runs a lot of like what Doug Peterson runs too. Like those are like.
I think they wanted to get rid of Doug Peterson. They were like, how can we keep this as together as possible and cohesive? So they went out and got a guy basically they plucked him from the same tree. You know what I mean? And so not much I don't think is going to change here either from a coaching standpoint. I mean, I think the offensive coordinator came from
Steichen. Yeah,
Steichen came from the Chargers, but he also worked with Reich and all these other guys prior to.
So they spent like 7 seasons together.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all going to be the same system. It's all going to be relatively the same.
He did all right with Justin Herbert too, by the way.
He did pretty good last year with Justin Herbert. That was Justin Herbert's OC last year. So I guess we'll see how they kind of mesh everything with Jalen Hurts. That's going to be the X factor, and the only difference you're going to see in the offense is kind of how they make it his offense. Because I feel like last year they were running Wentz's offense and Hurts was in it. I guess we'll see how they kind of mesh it and make it work for Hurts.
Blow that bad boy right through Dallas Goedert.
Well, you know what? And I do got to get Steichen some credit. They did a great job. Now, granted, Justin Herbert's incredible, but they did a great job of transitioning from it being Tyrod Taylor's offense to Justin Herbert's offense pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So if they're able to adapt that quickly, if they have a whole offseason to do it, I would assume that they're going to do a pretty good job. I think for this, the coaching stuff was almost a moot point. It's, can they get weapons and can they get an offensive line? Like the coaching staff at this point almost doesn't even matter to me.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, especially when it barely changed. I mean, it changed, but the system's all the same. So it doesn't. It really is not much of a factor.
Yeah, and then lastly, the Texans hired David Cully, I know you might be thinking, what's going on here? Could be David Scully from X-Files because I have no idea what's going on. It's a big mystery for me.
He was the passing game coordinator for the Ravens.
He's 65 years old.
Doesn't pass.
Yeah. So
how did that guy get an interview? Like, what the heck, man?
I'm going to tell you what I know about David Cully.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to stop because this is all I know.
Yeah.
All right. Because there's not even a lot, besides Deshaun Watson, I don't know who you love on the Texans in the first place. I don't know where you're going after that.
And before you get into that, they kept the offensive coordinator from last year. So go ahead.
There you go. He's the former passing game coordinator, like Matt said, for the Baltimore Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
He's 65 years old.
Which is the oldest first-time head coach ever.
He's never been a coordinator in the NFL in his life, kind of like his former head coach, Harbaugh. He was a receivers coach for Andy Reid in Philly and assistant head coach and receivers coach for Reid in Kansas City. He was Josh Allen's quarterback coach his rookie year under Sean McDermott. In Baltimore, he helped orchestrate the #1 rushing offense in the NFL and led the NFL in scoring in 2019, averaging 33.2 points per game.
But he was the passing game coordinator.
That being said, I already had his hand in it a little bit. Like
Okay.
He helped.
All right.
Like, that's all
He
I
said,
know.
my passer runs. I got to be involved.
So, I mean, you got Houston. You got Deshaun Watson for now.
For now.
Good luck, guys.
And that's the thing, like, how disjointed is all this going to be? This does not seem like the guy Deshaun Watson wanted.
This is, I think
they just really set him up.
They're just going, yeah, they're like,
That's
all right,
the
who's going to
thing.
be the easiest coach to fire in 2 years when we finally get the ship right now? Like, let's hire the 6-year-old former passing game coordinator for Baltimore.
Yeah.
What's his name? David Scully? Yeah, I like the X-Files. Let's do it. Does anybody else got something? Because that's all I have for David Cully. I don't.
Honestly, no, man. I don't.
And Houston's a train wreck. I mean, is there any dynasty asset you want in there right now besides Deshaun Watson? Anything?
No.
You want David Johnson on your team?
No.
Well, I'll take Dude Johnson.
As a flyer for super cheap, I mean.
Hey, you got to get across the ocean somehow.
I think they're spending the second most out of anybody. It's either second or third most out of anybody in the NFL at the running back position. And they have got the absolute worst running backs imaginable. David Johnson, Duke Johnson,
Dwayne Johnson,
Hilliard. They just signed. I think they re-up Buddy Howell.
Browns?
Yeah, it's just and they're
Kevin Mack out there.
Yeah, Kevin Mack might be out there. So they're I don't know, man.
Hillis?
That whole Houston team is a wreck, like you were saying, man.
Send him back, baby.
They're tough. So there was one that wasn't on the sheet that I just wanted to at least go over because it's an offensive coordinator switch technically.
Sure.
I mean, it's the Kubiak son taking over for Gary Kubiak. I just wanted to at least mention that, things are going to stay the same there. I would imagine he's going to have a slight twist on it, whatever, it's a different
his own brand,
a different set of eyes, so to speak.
Shut up, Dad! I got my own thing.
Depends how you twist it, man.
Exactly, but
I too hard. You're like, I twisted just right. You're like,
I wouldn't expect it to change much at all. But I at least wanted to mention
that
Clint took over for his dad.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. And with that being said, that's a wrap on the show today, ladies, gentlemen. We'll be back next week with more amazing Dynasty content. But in the meantime, if you enjoy the show, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes. It only helps promote the show, helps the show get out there. It's a very easy, free way to help the show. Get to iTunes, leave us a rating and review. If you don't want to leave us a good review, just don't even bother. Just stay. Move on to the next show.
Don't waste your time with negativity.
If you do like the show, please leave a rating review. It helps out. Yeah. Like we mentioned, get to the YouTube channel, like, subscribe, hit that notifications button. We got tons of content going there as well. And of course, join the Nerd Herd. There's never a more important time than to be a Nerd Herd member than right now as we get into these rookie. We got to remember,
it's getting so close.
Oh
when we do our rookie breakdowns, we do half on the free show, half on the Nerd Herd show. It's our only way to get through all that. And of course, it's paid content. But for the price of a cup of coffee, even if you just join for that section, for the rookie content,
totally.
Join us for like 6-7 weeks.
You will come away more prepared for your rookie draft than you could ever possibly be. It'd be your best $6 you've ever invested in your dynasty team, and you'll probably stick around because we're so awesome. And then if you're really so inclined, you got to get you got the dynasty GM
you
as
get
well.
That GM, man, and you'll never let go.
We have some new features coming out soon. When these new features come out, I just want to mention as well, the pricing of the GM and the Nerd Herd will be going up slightly. Not a lot, but slightly. But if you subscribe now, guess what?
Grandfathered in.
Yeah, like my granddaddy. You're always in my heart. Price never goes up. You're locked in.
Just like his granddad.
You're down for day one, you're my A1.
Just like you said.
Yeah,
his granddad.
Granddaddy, grandpappy, granddad in. So make sure you get in there today. Give it a try. And remember, if you just want to see what the Dynasty GM could do for you and your Dynasty teams, it's free to try
awesome.
right now.
Yep.
Go to dynastynerds.com, click on Dynasty GM, hit that free 3-day trial, get in there, start playing with it, and just like anything else you start playing with for the first time, you're just never going to stop.
Never going to stop. It's just an email address. You don't even have to put in a credit card or anything.
Ooh la la.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week.
Adios.